I want to introduce our speaker this morning, Lisa Montanaro. She is a certified professional organizer, business and life coach, motivational speaker as well, who has led quite a multifaceted life as an attorney, as a mediator, as an educator, stage performer in the past, and also an author. In 2010, she published The Ultimate Life Organizer, an interactive guide to a simpler, less stressful, and more organized life. And she wrote the brand called You, Personal and Professional Branding for Authors, published in an article published in 2023 as the first chapter of Launchpad, the countdown to marketing your book. Okay. Then in January, 2025, just this year, she published her first novel titled Everything We Thought Was True. Okay. Which is kind of a interesting title. Has them for sale, as you can see. Thereby joining the ranks of fiction writers with many of the people who are here today. Okay, so what we'll learn from her this morning is the importance of choosing the right publishing path, the publishing choices available, big traditional, small press, hybrid, and indie, the pros and cons of each, the similarities and differences of each, okay, and then choosing which is best for either an entire writing career or done on a book-by-book basis. The title of her talk is Publishing Paths for Today's Strategic Author, Choices, Decisions, and Priorities. So would you please welcome Lisa Montanaro.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. For those of you that did not get a handout, so I think I brought 20. If you didn't get a handout, you can go to tinyurl.com. So the word tiny, T-I-N-Y, url.com/publishing paths CWC. If you go there, you could pull up a PDF of the handout at any time. I'll leave it on there for months, and it will also be with the recording. Yeah, on the website.
Put it on our website as well as meeting archives.
They'll put it in the meeting archives. But for those of you that want to pull it up, it is tinyurl.com/publishing paths CWC for the California Writers Club. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm happy to be with you today. I was your speaker last year around the same month, I believe. It was also April. And last year I spoke about Ready, Set, Launch, how to launch a book. So we're going to back up. We're going to back up the process here and talk about publishing paths. So today's strategic author has more publishing paths than ever, and we will talk about what they are. What I loved was I got to hear your introductions. So I know what genres you're writing in, and we have really great representation here of what I would call narrative nonfiction or creative nonfiction. Many of you are writing memoir, creative nonfiction. Some of you are writing personal essays. Some of you are writing what's called prescriptive nonfiction. Prescriptive nonfiction are how-to and how-to articles and how-to books. So that is the difference between narrative nonfiction and prescriptive nonfiction. Many of you are writing magazine articles, essays. Some of you are doing freelance writing, poetry. We have some flash fiction, short fiction. So I think in terms of taking the temperature of the room, we have a lot of wonderful genres here. By a show of hands again, remind me who is published in any form, and I'll go over what those forms are. Okay, who is pre-published? Notice what I called that. You are pre-published if you intend to publish. So who's intending to publish? Who am I? Okay, so your new elevator pitch is, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm pre-published, or I'm an emerging author, which is another wonderful term there. When people say things like, I really want to get published and I just finished my book, and that's all great, but you're pre-published because you're going to get there. Here's an outline of what we're going to cover today, the definition of success as an author, because publishing paths are very subjective. No two people will have the same publishing paths, and I'll be honest, today, no two writing projects will have the same publishing paths. So we used to have one publishing path for an entire author career, and now what we're seeing is a publishing path per project. So people are switching up, which is a good thing, because we have more choices. So we'll go over your definition of success as an author. We're going to go over the readiness of your writing project, because that also determines your publishing path and when you enter the process. We're going to look at today's publishing landscape. There are about 6 major publishing paths. We'll go over 5 of them, and I'll briefly mention what the 6th one is. Financial considerations, which usually plays into your decision greatly. Your level of control. Who are my control freaks out there? Anyone have CFS, control freak syndrome? Yeah? So if you have CFS or you're recovering from it, you may pick a different publishing path from someone else. Your skill set. What are you good at outside of writing? In other words, are you really good at marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, etc.? So when we look at your skill set, that will also determine your publishing path. And then the last thing we'll look at is your time frame. When do you want to publish? How quickly do you want to get to market? And how patient are you to sit out the slow as molasses publishing cycle for some of the traditional publishing options? So let's start with a little self-reflection. So there's a little self-assessment for you. Here are some probing questions. What are your goals for your author career and for this writing project or book? There are no right or wrong goals, just misaligned ones. So what are your goals for your author career and for the specific project that you might be pitching or querying next? So I'll give you a moment to think about that if you'd like to take some notes. And for those of you on Zoom, thank you for joining us. And you could play along also. The next question I know is a big one, so you may not be able to answer it right now, but you could start to sort of brainstorm around it, maybe write down a few words. What is your definition of success as an author? And if I collected all of these, or if I pulled it out of your brain, I probably would have 30 different answers, because everyone's definition of success as an author is different. Some people want to sell a ton of books. Some people want critical acclaim. Some people just want to touch a reader. Some people are more interested in encapsulating a life story. Some people want to change minds and hearts. So think about, what is your definition of success as an author? Why are you publishing? What's your big why? And that will also determine the best path to get you there. What genre are you publishing? Different genres often have different publishing paths. And so when genre plays into this, I'll let you know when we get to the publishing landscape. And if you are multi-genre, will you be publishing under the same name or using a pen name? And if so, as a branding expert, why? So if you are considering publishing a multi-genre, can you brand all of those genres under one hat, under one author hat, or are you planning to use a pen name? And if so, why? One reason would be, for example, if you've created a huge brand and you're going way outside that genre, some people will use a pen name. Or if what you're publishing now, if what you're planning to publish is not only so different from your brand, but would be embarrassing. For example, let's say you write children's books and that's what you're known for, and then you're writing erotica, you might want to use I'm serious, they're out there, right? And you may want to use a pen name, etc. And then last question, how ready is your writing project to be published? And here's the straight talk from a New Yorker. You now need to be more polished than ever before. So for a nonfiction book or project, mostly books, but for a nonfiction book, you need a book proposal. And that book proposal will have a number of things in it, including your table of contents, 3 sample chapters, your bio, your author platform, etc. If you're interested in how to write a kick-ass book proposal, I would go to janefriedman.com. janefriedman.com, and just pop in there, book proposal, janefriedman.com, and she's got an awesome sample for you, and she freely gives that sample away. If you are writing fiction, you will need your entire manuscript written, revised, edited, polished, beta read, and ready to go. And a lot of people don't realize that, and I think this room realizes that, but a lot of writers, when they first start out, they say, wait a minute, you mean I have to create the entire written work in order to submit it? And the answer is yes. So think of the nonfiction side as like the left brain. So that is more of the business entrepreneurial side. And in that side, you can tell the publishers what you're planning to write, show them a sample, and they'll say, okay, that's fine. On the fiction side, you're creating what they would consider a piece of art. And it's more like a painting. Like, you have to create the painting. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to do a painting with Denny's on it. They're like, I want to see it before I put it in my gallery and sell it. Or like, for example, of a record recording, they say, well, I'd like to hear you before I sign you on, unless you're Bono, and then you can do whatever you want, right? So readiness also plays into this. Okay, decisions. We have more choices now than ever. This is a good thing. People will say to me, we have so many choices now. There's so many publishers out there and so many paths. This is good. But it often makes people have a lot of indecisiveness. So we're going to try to break down what the choices are and then which ones may be the best for you. You can make a decision, as I mentioned, for your whole author career, but that is less likely these days than it used to be. In the past, you might get signed on by an agent, you might go with one publisher, and you might stay with them for your career. Now people are sort of hopscotching around based on their projects. Your publishing path affects your outcome. It'll affect your income. It will affect whether or not you can be reviewed, whether you can enter contests and awards, whether you will be in a bookstore, whether you will be digital only. So your publishing path actually affects so many outcomes, which is why it's good to know what you're getting into. The great equalizer today is marketing. Almost every author out there has to do marketing. Yes, even big time authors, unless you're Stephen King. So we have what we call the chosen ones, and then everything else. And the chosen ones are a very, very small percentage of the literary market. So the great equalizer is marketing and branding for authors. And a lot of authors will push back on that and say to me, I don't want to market. And I say, great, then just be okay with not selling a lot of books. You'll be the best kept secret. And readers will, I'm being totally honest, sorry. You will be the best kept secret. Or partner with someone that knows how to market for you, and then they do that, but then you're funding that marketing. So you either do it yourself or you fund it, or you're okay with it not being done at all, and then know the outcome that that brings you. So thinking about a few things before we get into the publishing path. One is do your due diligence. There's a website called Writers Beware. I put it in your handout. And before you sign on with any publisher, I would go to Writers Beware and just see what people are saying about them. And then I would also go to that publisher's website, and then I would look to see their catalog of books, who have they published before, and then I try to talk to some of their authors. And people go, you could do that? Of course you can. It's a free world. You can say, hey, Jackie, I see that you're published with so-and-so. What's your experience been like? What are the pros? What are the cons? I would probably recommend you don't sign with a publisher unless you've spoken to at least 3 of their authors and found out what their experiences have been. You can also just do a Google search and see, have they been sued recently? Many small publishers have been going out of business, and you just want to make sure that you're with some type of publisher that can withstand and weather the storm of publishing, which is a very volatile industry. You also want to assess the quality of their books. Do you see your book fitting in with their books? Or would your book stick out like a sore thumb and not fit in with the genres they publish? Do you like their covers? Are they known for good editing, and do you desperately need editing, or is your project ready to go? So think about your due diligence before we even go into what all the publishing paths are. Okay, so here are the publishing paths. We're going to start with traditional publishing at the top. Traditional publishing is known as trad, T-R-A-D, because traditional sounds too staid and old to them. So they're trying to be hip, so they now call it trad publishing. Not to be, trad, which is rad, right? Not to be confused with trade publishing. Trade publishing is pretty much everything you see when you walk into a bookstore. Trade publishing is commercial publishing. It's all the books that you're seeing today, as opposed to scholarly or academic publishing. So if you go into a UC Davis bookstore, you're going to see scholarly and academic publishing. If you walk into, Barnes & Noble in the Art and Fair Mall in Sacramento, you're going to see trade publishing. So when you see the New York Times bestseller list or the USA Today bestseller list, and it says trade reviews or trade publication, that's what they mean. Trade meaning it is in the commercial market and you can trade it. It is a weird term, but it's what they still use. So we're going to start with the big 5. The big 5 dominate the market, and I've given you their names here. They are Penguin Random House, because they merged together years ago, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Macmillan, and the Hachette Book Group. Those are your big 5. They have multiple imprints underneath them. So you'll see all these imprints, but if you look closely, if you open up to that copyright page, it will say, blah, 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 an imprint of HarperCollins. And so all of those imprints actually act as small little publishers underneath the bigger parent company, but they still have the machine of the parent company behind them. And with Big Five Publishing, you were looking. I'll get there in a minute, Chris. The great question. Sorry, the question was for Zoom. I don't know if they can hear. What does it mean to have a machine? All right, I'll get there now. So it means editing, editorial, sales, marketing, PR, design, production, and I don't think I've left anything out. So basically it means that it is the entire business process of how to bring a book to market, and they'll have everything, like literally think of an assembly line. They'll have everything for you. You don't have to pick and choose or worry about anything in terms of your book being produced. You will have, hopefully, with the Big Five, an advance. An advance is widely misunderstood. An advance basically is an upfront payment of your royalties. So this is the publisher saying to you, we are taking a financial risk and we are going to bear the burden of that financial risk, and we're going to give you $100,000 for your book. However, you have to earn out that advance before you ever see another cent of royalties. And a lot of people don't realize that. It is, you are borrowing against your future earnings. And that $100,000, which sounds like so much money, it will be broken up in the past to 2 to 3 payments or installments. Now it's broken up into 4 sometimes. So you sign your contract, if you're lucky, with a literary agent, which I'll get into in a minute, who takes 15% commissions of your advance and all your royalties for that book for life. And they will then pay you $100,000 at once? No. They'll say, okay, at signing of the contract, you'll get $25,000 a quarter. And then when you hand in your manuscript and your editor says, it looks like a real manuscript, it smells like one, you'll get another $25,000. And then when your manuscript is done through the process, you'll get another $25,000. And then when it sells on the market, when it publishes, you might get your last payment. Sometimes they do it in 3s. And so it sounds like a lot of money. And listen, many people would be unbelievably happy with that. But let's say you took 6 to 8 years to write your book, and then you get your $25,000 to sign it. And then, a year later, you get another $25,000, and a year later, you get another $25,000. It's not as much money. So I think we all get starry-eyed by Big Five. Most authors today do not make a living on their writing income. Sorry. And that has not changed historically over time. Again, the chosen ones are making a living on their writing income, but the everyone else is not. Now, I'm not saying that Big Five isn't awesome because you get that support system, but I just want you to keep in mind what the financial considerations look like. So you need to have literary agent representation to go to a Big Five. Chris will be talking about that soon. And I'm looking, you're also having a speaker coming up on self-publishing, which is awesome. We'll cover that today. And then my friend Heather Lazar, who I attended her Northern California Writers Retreat, is going to be speaking as an editorial and publishing consultant. So you've got some great speakers coming up after this topic. But I want you to think about the Big Five for a minute. It can lead to media rights. So that is film, television adaptations, foreign sales translations, speaking engagements, and it has the largest distribution. So if your goal is to see your book in all bookstores, and that is like what we call Big Five or bust, then you will keep querying agents. Many authors will query 100+ agents over 1+ years. And if they don't get an agent for that manuscript, they shelve it. They don't self-publish it. They don't look at any of the other options here. When you have a Big Five or bust mentality, like it's this or nothing, they have a lot of shelved manuscripts, and those books never see the light of day. That is their personal choice. So I'm not going to say, oh, I feel bad about that, because they've chosen to do that. But there are a lot of writing that never makes it to market because so many people are shelving their books. So keep that in mind. The wide distribution of a Big Five is why a lot of people go with it. Your book will be in all of the major retailers, Target, Costco, Walmart, Barnes & Noble. It will also be in all the libraries, and that's pretty much an instant thing. You don't have to do anything. With all the other publishing paths we're looking at, you have to hustle to get your book into brick and mortar stores and libraries. So who is this good for, this trad publishing? Someone that has a commercial or high concept fiction novel. They are patient and can wait out the 2 to 4 years process that it might take, depending on, it might take you a year to get an agent. It might take that agent a year to sell your book to a publisher. And then from there, it could take 2 years for your book to go to market. So if you have all the time in the world and you believe in this project and you don't mind waiting, this might be a good path for you. If you don't want to put out any money yourself, then Big Five would be great. If you're hoping to get a large advance, if you want a marketing team behind you, if you're willing to give up most or all of your control, because they will determine everything, your book cover, your title, everything, your sales, I'm trying to think, your marketing plan, your sales plan, you will have consultation in your contract, not decision making. Big difference, big difference. And then if you have the resilience to withstand rejection, you can go this route because you will get rejected a lot before you get a yes. And if you want bragging rights, like if this is your dream, then a lot of people will hold out. Underneath the Big Five, we have, yes?
One quick question is, in your opinion, when you're looking for an agent and you're thinking Big Five, how important is it, let's say it's a really good agent, but how important is it that they already have established relationships with Big Five?
That's a great question for Zoom if you didn't hear it. How important is it if you really want Big Five to work with an agent who already has authors with Big Five publishers? I think it's a conversation because this will become your business partner, and that's the way you need to look at an agent. A lot of people get really nervous around agents. You're interviewing them just like they're interviewing you, and you're going to give them 15% of your advance and royalties for that project for life. So you want to know how hungry are you if you don't have authors with the Big Five to pitch this to them, and what contacts and what mountains will you move to do it? And can you give me an idea of your plan? What does your submission package look like, and how will you get it there? So,
Very well said.
yeah, spoken like a lawyer, right? So underneath the Big Five is a category a lot of people forget about. It's called mid-size publishers. So these are all of the publishers in the tier below the Big Five that don't dominate the market, but are really awesome publishers. Examples are Kensington, Wiley, Sourcebooks, W.W. Norton, and Amazon Publishing. And when I say that, people go, you mean Amazon itself? No. Amazon itself is a retailer. Amazon Publishing is made up of Lake Union, which is their book club fiction, Montlake, which is their romance, and Thomas and Mercer, which does other genres. So that is their traditional publishing arm, which means it has all of the same bells and whistles as other traditional publishers. The reason there's nothing under the bullets for mid-sized publishers is everything above applies to them. Usually, you have to go in with agent representation, literary agent representation for a mid-sized publisher, and usually you'll get an advance. Your advance will be smaller than Big Five. And by the way, as you go down, the advances get smaller and smaller and smaller until you get to small press where there's pretty much no advance, but a lot more royalties. And then when you get to self-publishing, you advance your own money because you're funding it, but you get all the profits. So the financial thing flips. It's like the whole pyramid flips on its head. So mid-sized publishers are pretty awesome. So that is something to think about, and that would be what I would ask an agent, would be, okay, if you haven't done Big Five and you've done a lot of mid-size, tell me why I should be looking at them. And what the agent might say is because they're going to sweeten the deal, and you might be the chosen one for one of the mid-size, but you wouldn't be for Big Five because they're too worried about, J.K. Rowling and Stephen King and Leanne Moriarty, et cetera. So then we get to still under traditional, and the reason traditional is important to know is they pay everything. In traditional publishing, there is no money that flows from the author to the publisher at all. Traditional publishing, you do not put out a cent. All the money flows to you. When we get to the models after traditional publishing, when we get to hybrid and indie or self-publishing, the money flows from you to the publisher or from you to the market. So the next category under traditional is small and indie presses, not to be confused with indie publishing. The publishing industry uses two terms, two different ways, and I hate it. So they will call, like my book is published by a small press called Red Adept Publishing, and I call it a small publisher, people call it an indie press. It's a bad word because indie publishing is self-publishing, like indie films. And I prefer the term indie publishing for self-published authors as opposed to self, because you should be creating a business when you're a self-published author, and so indie has a lot more cachet, right? If you're in the film industry and you're like, well, I self-did my own film, people are like, okay. If you're like, I'm an indie filmmaker and I went to Sundance, you're like, oh, how cool, So it has a lot more cachet. The other term that the publishing industry uses twice is hybrid publishing and hybrid authors, and I want to kill them. So hybrid publishing we will get to next. That is the in-between from traditional publishing and self-publishing. A hybrid author is someone that publishes one project or book on their own, self-publishing, and also publishes another project or book with a traditional publisher. So they're a hybrid author because they straddle both worlds. They're like, I've published traditional and I've published indie. So hybrid publishing is very different than a hybrid author. So. Okay, small and indie presses, I have to be honest, and I'm not just saying this because I published with 2 different small publishers. They're filling the hole right now in the publishing industry. They are where it's at. They are where most people are getting great deals. And the reason is they're not stupid. They have smart business models. They look at traditional publishing and say, Big Five can only take on so many people. And Big Five are putting out money. And when they put out money, they're going to be very selective because they're funding this project, praying that it does well. By the way, authors do not pay back their advances. So if they gave me $100,000 for Simon & Schuster and my novel, let's say, doesn't earn out, I will never see more royalties from that, but I don't have to pay any of it back. So that is a big secret in the Big Five. So people say, why would they take these chances on authors? Because the 2% of authors that are basically keeping their lights on sell enough books for the rest. So keep that in mind. Small and indie presses are just like traditional publishers. They are traditional publishers. They're just smaller. They sometimes have very limited, lean teams. You get a limited or no advance. And people go, wait, I don't want to go with them. They're not going to give me any money up front. Hold on, because your royalties, instead of being 8% per book for a traditional publisher, are 25 to 50% of each book sale. So if you have a trade publication, if you have a trade paperback that sells for $18.49, so let's say $20 after tax, right? You will get 8% of that. Someone do 8% of $20. It is, what, $1.60? You'll get $1.60 per book that sells in Barnes & Noble. That's what you will see as a traditionally Big Five published author. If that same book sells for $20 and you're with a small press that's giving you 25 to 50%, now do 50%, what am I getting? $10. Big difference. But you don't get any money up front. So you're not borrowing against your future earnings. So when you get a publishing deal and it's like, you say to yourself, oh my God, I'm not getting an advance. They don't believe in me. They believe in you. They just aren't going to upfront you the money because they're taking a bigger risk because they're small. They are small publishers. So they're going to say, let's partner together, put out a great book, and every time it sells, we each get a piece of it. So it's a very different business model. The mid-size pays the same as the traditional. Great question. So mid-size publishers are paying the same royalty and advance structure as the Big Five. Yeah, so they're still doing, and it does vary. It's about 8% for a trade paperback, but it is, I think, 25% for an ebook, for digital, and I can't remember what the audiobook is, but the audiobook and ebook are a little higher, which is interesting. And it's because it costs them a hell of a lot more money to put this book together as a Big Five, to put it in Barnes & Noble. So for small and indie presses, they use what's called print on demand. So it's a limited distribution. They're not going to do a $5,000 print run and put your book into all these bookstores because they don't know if anyone's going to buy it. And people will hear POD, print on demand, and think it's bad. It's not bad. Again, a huge portion of the publishing industry now uses print on demand. It means that they wait to see the demand and then they print. So it's really being used a lot. So again, if you see that in a publishing deal, my God, Lisa, no advance and POD, I shouldn't sign this. It's a great deal. And most people are using it now. The royalties are higher. They focus a lot more on digital. So when you go with a small press, they're way less focused on producing the book itself, even though they will. They will sell, you will sell, if you go with a small press, 75 to 90% of your sales will be digital. They're huge on KU, on Kindle Unlimited, huge on ebooks. They'll still print on demand when they see that people want it, but the focus is more on digital, so it's a little bit of a flip there. They print fewer books, and they often have regional, thematic, or genre focus. So let's say you are writing a very specific book about literary fiction with a little bit of a crossover with something historical in the Tudors era, and you find a publisher that specializes in that, it's a match made in heaven. So you might want to research when you have like really specific genre, some of these small presses. Examples are Rising Action Publishing, Crooked Lane and Alcove Press. Crooked Lane is the mysteries thriller side of the same publisher, and Alcove Press is the women's fiction book club side. Red Adept Publishing, which is my publisher, and there are so many more great small presses out there. In your resources section on your handout, you'll see that Poets and Writers keeps a database of small presses. I checked it yesterday to make sure it's still active. It's still there. It's huge. It's just A through Z, alphabetical order of tons of small presses with hyperlinks to all of their websites. So it's a great, great resource. Question?
That was my question, how to find these small publishers, but I don't see it in your.
If you go to the end of the handout, you'll see where it says resources. Yeah, and you'll see right there. So you can go to Poets and Writers database. Also start picking up a lot of books and open to the copyright page. Books you like, you know what comps are, comparable books that are similar to yours. Go find comps. And one of the best things to do, I was like a dog looking for a bone. I would go to the copyright page and I would look at books that were similar to mine, and I would find on the copyright page who published that book. And then I started keeping a list, and I had about 25 to 30 publishers that I knew would be a good match for my book. The other great place to find these is go to the acknowledgments page and look and see who that author acknowledges, and you'll see how they word it and who their editor was and who their PR person was and which publisher they were with. And so those two places, even within a book, are a great place. But online, I would go to Poets and Writers because it's vetted, so it's a really good place. Who does this work for? A debut novelist. Because a big five might not want to take a chance on a debut novelist unless you have a huge high concept fiction novel or like the best agent out there. So a debut novelist or someone that writes literary fiction or genre fiction. If you're having a hard time getting an agent, small presses and publishers are a great place to go. Or if you're having a hard time finding a trad author, a traditional author. If you are impatient and you don't want to wait the long publishing lag time of traditional publishing, if you have no upfront money to invest with hybrid or self, or if you are willing to give up some control, but not as much control as you would have with a big five. Chris.
With these smaller publishers talking about, can you query directly to the publisher?
Great question. Yeah, so small presses do not require an agent. You can go unagented. There are they require for nonfiction a book proposal, and for fiction your entire manuscript. I would highly recommend that you create a query package no matter what. So your query package would go to an agent if you're doing traditional publishing mid-size or big five, and your query package would go to a small press if you're querying directly to them. They want the exact same thing. I had to submit to my publisher a query letter just like I would, I basically use the same query letter I used for agents, right? And then my entire manuscript, and they have a 4-month read period, and they'll tell you on their website, all these small publishers, it takes us 3 to 4 months to read because we are so backlogged. Then they let you know if they're gonna publish, if you're lucky, then they give you a deal.
What's a query package?
A query package is basically your query letter and a great bio, separate from your query letter, and you should have a marketing plan today. People go, what? Because almost every agent will ask you, what are you planning to do for marketing? I know what Simon & Schuster might do, but what are you planning to do? What do you come with? And you hear this term out there, author platform, way more important on nonfiction side. But even on a fiction side, they want to know, what are you going to do? Do you have a website? Do you belong to a great writing organization? Do you do public speaking? Do you do narrating? Do you have any network? Do you love social media? If so, which platform? So I would say query package is a great query letter, and then a great bio, and then a great, not a great, but a semblance of a marketing plan. At least put something together, yeah.
Should you attach like a PDF of your entire novel, or wait for them to ask for that?
That's a great question. So always follow the instructions. I had a folder called query basically in my MacBook. And I had the first chapter as one document, the first 3 chapters as one document, 50 pages as one document, 100 pages of one document, and then the full manuscript. And if you do all that up front before you start pitching, or so I call it querying for agents, and I call it pitching or submitting for publishers that you can go to directly without an agent. And I just do that in my head so I understand the difference. When I'm querying, I'm looking at an agent. When I'm pitching or submitting, I'm looking at a publishing house where I don't need an agent. Go ahead. Whatever they say. So you follow, they have such specific instructions and it drives me nuts. Many of them use Query Manager, which is the back end of Query Tracker. You won't see it. You'll go into Query Tracker, but they will go through Query Manager, and whatever you said you're going to submit, that's what they'll get. Some of them now will also say that you can email, and if you email, you better only email what they ask for, because if you email a lot more, sometimes their assistant will say, you didn't follow the directions, I don't want to work with you. They're pretty strict about that. I remember my publisher saying to me when we were on the phone to determine if I was going to go with them for my publishing deal, she said something like, I think that I'd like you to take chapter 3 and make it chapter 1. Of course, I'll have you work with our editor, but what do you think about that? And I said, done. And she's like, done meaning you're planning to do it? I said, no, done meaning I've done it, because an agent asked for a full, which is they wanted to read my full manuscript. And the agent said, I don't think this is the right project for me and the genre I represent, but can I give you some feedback? I'm like, yes, please, because people ghost you out there. And the agent said, I really think chapter 3 should be chapter 1. And I thought about it, I'm like, damn, that's good. And so I changed it, and my publisher will never forget it. It said, we will work well together, because what I don't like are diva authors who are not good at taking feedback. So even just that was like a little test. Yeah. So only submit what they ask for. If they ask for the first chapter of the book, which they almost always will for fiction, they're not going to ask for chapter 55. They want to know, can you hook me from the beginning? And if you can't hook me from the beginning, they won't keep reading. Yeah.
It's a tough question to answer, but yeah, for submissions, every agent and agency is different.
Hi.
If they ask for a query, are you going to send a query package or just a query letter?
They want the query letter, and if they ask for more, you send it. So they're pretty specific. It'll say, please attach query letter and first 3 chapters. And I mean, when I say specific, some of them will say, I can't remember what it was. Do not include a header with your name at the top or with the title. I'm like, what? So sometimes they're very specific. And then they'll get back to you and say, hi, Lisa, I'd actually like a full, and I'd like to see whether you have a 1-page marketing plan. So they'll tell you, follow directions carefully. This is like kindergarten. Yeah. Go ahead, Barbara. Barbara asked about, I assume you're worried about, so can I push back a little there? Agents are so busy, they don't even have time to, have coffee in the morning. They're so overworked. They're like a realtor. They do not make any money unless they sell a book. Think about that. They do not have the time to, and they're not writers. They don't have the time to randomly steal your ideas and hope that someone else down the line somewhere can write your book better than you. It's never done, which is why they don't use NDAs. Non-disclosure agreements. So what you want to worry about is uploading your manuscript to a place where writers hang out or where the public hangs out. But I would not worry about giving your manuscript to an agent or a publisher, because the last thing they're going to do is be like, in my free time, I think I'm going to go write this other book, right? Here's the thing. Even writers, you have to have some type of trust, build up trust and faith. If you don't trust someone, don't send them anything. And of course, you can copyright, and you should copyright, put your copyright. You'll see all my materials are copyrighted. But most writers are just trying to get their own books done. They don't really have the time to, steal other people's stuff. But if you're worried about it, I wouldn't worry about it on the publishing and agenting side. I would worry about it putting it on your, for example, if you put your entire book on your blog, publisher won't publish it because it's considered already published. So you better know that. Yeah. Jackie.
I've seen on the agent side and the publisher side, there's a lot of information about beware, people are impersonating us.
Yeah. Weird. So that brings us to hybrid publishing. So let's cover that, and then I think there were a few more questions. Hybrid publishing is the one that's most misunderstood and gets a bad reputation because it used to be called, which is an outdated term, vanity publishing. And there were these vanity presses back in the 90s and early aughts, and they would charge a lot of money so that somebody could have a book, but it wasn't edited, and there was no quality control, and it was basically a business card. And it was mostly used by nonfiction authors who wanted to have a book basically to show their expertise. We have a legitimate category now called hybrid publishing, and it fills a legitimate niche between traditional and self-publishing. The author pays to publish, so I like to call it assisted publishing, because we now use hybrid author and it's confusing. So assisted publishing is where somebody already comes with a team of people. They have a graphic designer, they have a cover designer, they have an editor, they have a proofreader, and you will pay them the money and they will be the project manager and put your book out. But instead of them paying you in advance, you're paying them to do all the work if you don't want to pay for the self-publishing side. So the only time I would look at hybrid publishing is if you're considering self-publishing and you're really worried about two things. You're worried about being a project manager and doing all this work yourself. You're not sure if you can find vetted professionals to do all this work, and you want to go to a hybrid publisher that already has a ready-made team. Some hybrid publishing is very expensive, $10,000 to $25,000. Some is $2,500 to $5,000. My advice here is read the fine print carefully. Know what you're getting, because a lot of people will do a hybrid publishing deal for $2,500 and they'll think it includes the kitchen sink, and then it'll say, oh, well, we don't include this. So I would ask a hybrid publisher, not only what's included, what's excluded. This is like an insurance policy. I want to know what are the exclusions that I have to pay for directly. So read the fine print carefully and go with a hybrid publisher that you've done the due diligence, you've vetted carefully, you've talked to other authors who really say they had a great experience. Some examples are She Writes Press, Atmosphere Press, 1016 Press, Black Rose Writing, and I thought of another one on the way here, Kohler. And Kohler is interesting because they have a small publisher side, which is traditional, and then if they don't accept you on that side, they will offer you the assisted publishing side, where they'll say, hey, we're not willing to take a total chance to publish this book, but if you pay us as a hybrid publisher, we'll produce your book with you. And some hybrid publishers offer a pretty high royalty rate. So you might put out $5,000, but you might get 50, 60% of your royalties, and you might make that back. I believe it's Koehler, Kohler, I believe, but don't quote me on that. Yeah. How we doing? Okay. So indie or self-publishing. The former stigma of self-publishing not only has diminished, but is pretty much almost gone. Years ago, if someone self-published, people would kind of poo-poo it. Nowadays, no one knows how books get to market. They just see a book, they think it's great, they read it, they think it's great, and readers don't care. And even in the industry now, even agents and publishers, there's no longer a stigma, to the point where nowadays, some self-published authors that are doing really, really well will then partner with a traditional publisher and an agent for their foreign rights, or their audiobook rights, or their film adaptations. One thing I want to diminish, though, is one myth out there. A lot of people say, I self-published my memoir, Lisa, and now I want to get an agent for it. Forget it. Once you publish it, they won't touch it. They will take sub-rights if it's really good. They'll say, hey, we have a foreign rights person on our team, or you only published your book on Amazon, we will take the print rights if it's really, really good. So the only way you can take a self-published book and use an agent and a traditional publisher is for rights that you've not already used. Does that make sense? Self-publishing is awesome if you're a control freak, because you retain absolute 100% control over everything. The buck stops with you, but it is hard work. You are going to become an authorpreneur. So you will have a business, you will be the author, the creator, and you will run a publishing house. So you will be a publisher and an author. I call it an authorpreneur. It's an author entrepreneur. Yeah. So I'm speaking for InkersCon. If you've never heard of it, it's done by Alexandra Torre. It's a digital conference from June 7th to the 20th. And my course is actually Author as Entrepreneur Crash Course, and it's all about how to be an author entrepreneur. So if any of you are interested, it's Inkers, like INKERS, Inkers Con, and they have tons of great workshops there, and it's mostly for self-published people. Who self-publishing works for best? Genre novelists, like you write deep genre romance, mysteries, domestic suspense. You're prolific and you can churn out more than a book a year, or at least a book a year. Strong author platform, and you can reach your readers online. So you are already having a conversation with your readers. They are waiting with bated breath for your books to come out. You have an existing business, or you have business and marketing savvy. You have upfront money to invest, and you want to retain control. So a few financial considerations. For traditional publishing, I can't stress this enough, money flows exclusively from the publisher to the author. Going back to what Jackie asked, if you are asked to foot over money for someone to read your manuscript, do not do it. It is a scam. You can ask them, do you want to read my manuscript because you're a developmental editor and you're looking for business, or you're getting certified as a book coach and you need to do a manuscript evaluation. But if they claim they're an agent, agents do not charge you money to read manuscripts. They only get paid when they sell a book. So that's where that scam comes in. And really just keep that in mind. Anyone that's asking you for money unless they're asking you for money because you're self-published and you put something out to get your book cover done, that's different. So if you're self-publishing, you're going to put out a lot of money. If you're traditional publishing, you don't put out money unless you want to for your own marketing or your own PR, but you don't put out any money to publish. For hybrid and self-publishing, it's the opposite. All the money flows from you to the publishing house. And in the case of an indie, you are the publishing house, right? So just keep in mind where the money flows back and forth. For all publishing paths, money flows from the publisher to the author for royalties only once an advance is earned out or if an advance wasn't paid. Okay, so that's when the money starts to come to you. Level of control, traditional publishing is where you will relinquish your control. A lot of people don't realize that. So, for example, this was not my first title. Okay, this is my final title and I love it. And we did focus groups on it, but that was not my first title. That is not my first cover. They did focus groups on it. The cover changed. So there's a lot of collaboration with traditional publishing, and you have to be comfortable with that and say, I'm relinquishing control to experts, to people that know the industry. But if you're the type that's going to really bother you, you may want to consider going self-publishing. With indie self-publishing, you control everything and there are no gatekeepers. Copyright, let's just talk about copyright quickly. Copyright should retain with you for traditional publishing. You do not give your copyright. If you open my book and I'm with a traditional publisher, it is copyrighted to Lisa Montanaro. They file the copyright for you. If you publish your book on your own, you file the copyright for $40 with the US Copyright Office. If you go with a hybrid publisher in between, you own the copyright. The only time that you give over your copyrights is a work for hire, like for magazines, for example. A lot of you out there doing freelance writing, they might want an exclusive copyright and they'll say, if you publish this in our magazine, you can't publish this anywhere else. And you go, okay, So keep in mind that when you publish your book, you should retain the copyright. When someone asks you to give over copyright, that's a red flag. Yeah.
So you publish with a small press.
Yes.
You're saying small presses don't always.
They don't, right. So watch small presses carefully.
Do you own copyright?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So if a small press says to you, our model, we're so small, and our model is that we take the copyright, ask why. Why do you need the copyright to my book? And do I have reversion rights? When will I get back that copyright? Is it 1 year, 5 years, 7 years? If that book's not selling, would you agree to give me back my reversion rights? So it's called reversion rights. When will the rights revert back to you if you do hand over a copyright? So because they want the book to sell to make money, but if the book's sitting there in their catalog and no one's buying it, why would they mind you then getting the copyright and doing something with it? Yeah, so keep that in mind. Skill set. Do you want to write and have someone do everything else? If so, you might want to hold out for traditional publishing. If you're really good at entrepreneurial activities, then you might want to consider self-publishing. And then with time frame, all publishing takes a lot of time these days. I'm with a small traditional publisher, and my book took 2 years to get to market. And the reason I stopped querying agents was I was so impatient, and I asked myself, am I doing this for fame and fortune? Am I doing this because, I want to be on the New York Times bestseller list? The answer is no. I wanted this story, which I know will impact hearts and minds, and I wanted it to get out into the world. And I had already published with a small publisher, so I thought I'm going to go that route because I want to get to market quicker. And I asked someone, it still took 2 years, and they said, yeah, but it might have taken 4. So if you're like, God, I'm not getting any younger, and you want to do it yourself, then you might not want to hold out for Big 5. With indie publishing, you could publish in months if you want to, but make sure that book is ready, because if you publish a book that is not good quality, you will lose future readers. They'll be like, nah, that writer sucks, and they'll stop reading your stuff. So even if you self-publish and you self-publish quickly, make sure you have really good editorial. Resources, the very first resource there says Key Book Publishing Paths with downloadable charts. That is awesome. There are these charts that go through all the pros and cons of traditional, hybrid, and self-publishing by Jane Friedman. And again, those are what we call Creative Commons license, which means you can use them, take them, and she gives you that copyright. The Poets and Writers Database is small presses, and then Jane Friedman has a book called The Business of Being a Writer. It's an oldie but goodie, but she's re-releasing it on April 18th. So if you just wait, you can get a brand new version of that because the old one is about 10 years old and a lot has changed. And then Courtney Malm wrote Before and After the Book Deal. It's really awesome. So it is everything that would happen before you get your book deal and everything that would happen after. And both of those books are available on ebook, print, and audio. So keep that in mind. We had a few more questions, and I wanted to mention I'm speaking at the writing workshop of San Francisco. So you have the writing workshop of Sacramento next Friday. That's probably the one you will go to. But if you can't get in that one, or if you have friends in the Bay Area, I'm speaking the next day at the writing workshop of San Francisco, and that is on turning fact into fiction. So how to write what you know and create memoir, novels, and personal essays. And then I am going to be at the SAC Book Festival on May 31st. Woohoo! And then I'm also going to be at the Davis Library on June 23rd talking about this novel, not publishing past, but this actual novel. Davis Public Library. It's called the Mary Stevens Library in Davis, and I'll be there on June 23rd. So if you want to stay in touch, you can sign up for my newsletter. Up here, I've got bookmarks, I've got business cards. I'm on every social media you could possibly think of under Lisa Montanaro. You can find me there, and I will also stick around today. But we had a few more questions, so yeah. It's a great question, yeah. Barbara asked if I do my own social media. I do my own social media because I like it and I like to write my own content, but I have a webmaster and I have a virtual assistant. So my virtual assistant does all my graphics, so like the design of these business cards, the design of this, anything that you see that's designed is designed by my virtual assistant. She will put my newsletter out. I send her all the content and she puts it out. She will go on the website. I don't want to fight with dashboards and things, but social media to me is easy, and it's where I can engage with readers and writers. So I like to be on social media myself, so I haven't farmed that out yet. But if you don't love it and you've got a lot of great content and you're willing to sort of write, like, here's some ideas for posts, and you've got, someone in mind, I'm not saying don't farm it out. I'm just saying I don't, yeah.
In your query letter package, under your marketing plan, do you think Substack or an email newsletter are important?
Great question. And you just remind me, the 6th publishing, remember I said that? So there are 5 publishing paths. Under traditional publishing, there are 3. Big 5, mid-size, small press. Then we have hybrid publishing, remember? And then we have self-publishing. The 6th publishing is social publishing. And social publishing is Patreon, Wattpad, and Substack. And sometimes you serialize that. So let's say you're on Substack and you've got hungry readers and they're like, Lisa, I want chapter 15. When are you dropping it? That would be a serialization. You could put your whole book on Substack and you can monetize it by having a paid Substack. So that is another thing to think about. Wattpad, Patreon. You will not be able to traditionally publish anything you put on there because it will be considered published. But if you want to grow readers or practice your craft or get feedback, then social publishing is kind of cool. So I'm glad you asked that question. Now, back to your question. Yes, that should be part of your bio. Where do I show up in the world, offline and online, as an author? So people will say to me, I have no publishing cred, like I have no publishing credits. And I'm like, okay, so then what do you have as an author or a writer? I belong to this club. I am on Substack. I put out an author newsletter. I've studied under so-and-so. I've taken writing workshops. So that's where you kind of fill in the blanks if you don't have publishing credits or in addition to those publishing credits. Yeah. Yeah. Wattpad, WATTPAD, Wattpad. Patreon is Patreon, and then Substack is Substack. And for those of you on Zoom, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, feel free. Or put it in the chat, I guess. Yeah, put it in the chat. Question. Dean. Awesome. Good. Did you say this is your daughter? Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Be careful with that. Most publishing contracts now, you have to say in the publishing contract that not one portion of your manuscript that you oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha. Sure, yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you think about it, she's using artificial intelligence, and we've been using that for years. I mean, spell check on Microsoft Word is artificial intelligence. Scrivener has artificial intelligence. So does Google. I mean, Google Spiders, like the whole search engine. Yeah, yeah. Pro Writing Aid. Just be careful. What I was going to say is publishing contracts now will say that the author did not use artificial intelligence to create any portion of their manuscript, and you must sign that. And if they find that you did, you're going to be in trouble. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, a big use that I've had, one of them, artificial intelligence. I haven't used ChatGPT, I use Claude.
Me too. Claude is so much better. Yeah. For artists. Yeah.
As a part of my book proposal, I had to, besides 3 sample chapters, you have to give a synopsis
Yes.
of every other chapter. Oh man, I'm glad I didn't write that. I just put each chapter into Claude and said, spit me out a synopsis. When they spit you out a synopsis, you still have to do a lot of work on it to make it the best it can be. But I can't imagine how many hours that saved me.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are a lot of people that will use artificial intelligence in a very clever way for marketing copy, for example. Scrivener does an auto synopsis. You can ask Scrivener to do your synopsis based on each chapter. So yeah, there's some great uses. If you're really interested, there is a recent case, Thomson Reuters against Ross. It is one of the first big AI, artificial intelligence publishing cases. And Thomas Reuters publishes Westlaw, which is a database for lawyers to do research. And Ross came along and had its AI bots study Thomas Reuters to create a new database, which was going to compete with it. And thankfully, the court's like, no, that's copyright infringement. And Ross tried to say, but we didn't do it. AI bots did it. And it's a fair use exception. And the court said, yeah. And the court said, no, it's still a copyright infringement. So this is a whole new area of law that we're going to start seeing now. Yeah. If any of you want to stay after, I'll stick around. If you want to ask a question, come up, take a business card. If anyone wants a book, they are for sale. And I will stay in touch with all of you. And if you need some help, if you need writer coaching, reach out to me anytime for a cappuccino chat. We'll see if we're a good match. Thanks.
Hey, she deserves a big round of applause. Big.
Thank you so much. Again, Again, come forward if you have questions. Lisa's willing to stay a little bit longer. Buy a book. Ready at last.